Now, Sheriff Mack, my question is, where do the governors think they get this power to impose these restrictions, and where do they stand legally? I mean, where do we stand right now as a country?
Well, they get them the same place Hitler got them, through utter usurpation. And now we have people saying, oh no, time out. You don't get liberty. You don't get the freedom of movement. You don't get to run your business. You don't get to run your own property. You don't get to run your own families. You don't get freedom of religion. Isn't that amazing? We're saying you don't get freedom of religion in America? It's a national catastrophe that we are comparing what's going on today in America, the land of the free, to Adolf Hitler. And I'm sorry that we're doing it, and I don't like doing it. But the truth of the matter, historically, we're doing the same damn thing. And isn't it wonderful that we have dozens, if not hundreds of sheriffs now across America that have told governors and certain mayors, we will not enforce your ridiculous rules and orders because we will stand and enforce the Constitution.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Spiro, and today I'm very excited to have a man who I greatly respect on the show. He is an author and a public speaker who served the public for nearly 20 years as law enforcement, holding many different positions ranging from patrol officer to undercover narcotics, a detective, and as sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. He has received many awards over the years and has a long track record of standing for the Constitution. Sheriff Richard Mack also has a Supreme Court victory under his belt as he took Bill Clinton's Brady Bill to the highest court in the land and defeated it. He is also the founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, known as CSPOA.org. Sheriff Richard Mack, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Well, Spiro, thanks so much for having me. It is an honor to be on with you and your audience, and I really appreciate it. Being able to get our message out to the people of America, man, this is the best way to do it.
Well, it's a very important message, and we are living in unprecedented times right now, Sheriff. As for the first time in our lives, we have seen our entire country locked down under the justification of an emergency, turning millions of people's lives upside down. Has the cure become worse than the disease, Sheriff?
Well, I can answer that real quickly. Yes. Should we go on to the next question, or should we really dwell on that one a little bit? Yeah, there's no question about that. The cure has become worse than the disease, and I will never support destroying America, destroying our Constitution, destroying individual liberty, destroying everything that we believe in that made our country what it is, and then take that and flush it down the toilet because it's for your own good. And I'm sorry, I can never go along with that. Now, if the president came out, which I actually admired the way Trump has handled this, he has not declared martial law. He has not forced this. He has not sent out the National Guard to every home and tried to force us to stay in or wear masks or social distancing like some of these other stupid agencies or stupid states have done, like Governor Whitmer and Newsom and a few others. And I really like, and I can't remember her name, but I really love the governor from South Dakota. She has tried to be careful, but she has not shut the state down. And that's exactly my point. All of them can do that. All of them can follow Trump's example. All of them can follow the governor of South Dakota's example and just say, look, we want people to be careful. These are our guidelines. But you cannot force people to stay in their home. You cannot quarantine healthy people. I don't even know if you can justify quarantining sick people, but for heaven's sakes, you cannot do that to healthy people. So, yeah, there's so much more I could go on about, but the bottom line is this. We do not destroy America so we can be healthy. No way.
Now, Sheriff Mack, you sued the federal government. What can you tell us about that?
The older I get, the more amazing and miraculous it becomes. But the decision was rendered in 1997. In fact, we're coming up to the anniversary because it was June 27, 1997. I was sheriff at the time, and it's really quite historic because it's the only time in America's 245-year some odd history where a sheriff actually sued the federal government and won a landmark case at the U.S. Supreme Court. It's the only time it's ever happened. And I'm really proud of that. But I actually feel at the same time that sheriffs across this country should be taking a stronger stand against tyranny and governmental abuse all across the country, universal. And so it was an amazing case. And if I could give one quote from that case, I think it applies. In fact, it sounds like Scalia, who wrote the decision for the majority, it sounds like he's talking to us today. God rest his soul. And he said this, but the Constitution protects us from our own best intentions, end quote. And he goes on much more than that, and I might get into some of it again later as this goes on. But that has to be our mantra, our motto, our goal is liberty comes first. And some people say, well, what about life? Well, life and liberty go hand in hand. And we can fight together to protect our lives and our health. But you can't destroy my liberty and then tell me you're doing that because you're trying to protect me. That's not your decision to make. That's my decision to make. And controlling my life and controlling my liberty is not up to the whims of government. And they can persuade, just like Trump has been doing, and the governor of South Dakota. They can reason with us and persuade and educate and plead, but they cannot force the American people. This is our country. We come first. We, the people, bestow all power on government, and we are the boss of government, and they need our permission to exist. We don't need theirs.
Yes, it's been said that those who sacrifice liberty for a bit of temporary security deserve and shall receive neither. Now, Sheriff Mack, you recently did send out some letters contacting sheriffs across the country. What was in the letters, and what made you send those?
Well, the purpose of the CSPOA altogether, and we sent this from the CSPOA, Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, our whole purpose is a wake-up call to all law enforcement, especially sheriffs, because I've been a sheriff and I've been a law enforcement officer. I had a wake-up call when I was a rookie peace officer, patrol officer, and I was hit with an epiphany that what I was doing to people in writing all these ridiculous traffic tickets was abusive, and it wasn't right. It was immoral. And there are ways to take care of the free flow of traffic in our country without gouging the American people and without taxing them even more than they already are. And so I decided not to give this lady a ticket, and I said, I need to start learning why we have law enforcement. And so I ran smack in the face of the oath of office. When I did this study, I really did. I really spent a lot of time, even on duty, trying to find out why we have law enforcement, why we have government, and then bam, there's the oath of office. And I was so discouraged and ashamed of me and the entire law enforcement community because we swear an oath in God's name that we will uphold and defend, protect, and preserve the United States Constitution. And 99% of us have never even read it. And if we've read it, we certainly don't understand it. And we certainly don't keep our oath to uphold and defend those basic fundamental God-given principles. And so that takes us to another hero, and that is Officer Greg Anderson, who put out a video about that very thing.
Now, I've had the opportunity to speak with many sheriffs across the country who said that they will not enforce the governor's lockdowns because they believe they are unconstitutional. And, some of those sheriffs I had the opportunity to interview, and I will include later in this report. Now, Sheriff Mack, my question is, where do the governors think they get this power to impose these restrictions? And where do they stand legally? I mean, where do we stand right now as a country?
Well, they get them the same place Hitler got them, through utter usurpation and utter idiocy. And I admit, there are some state statutes that allow a governor to declare a state of emergency. But what that state of emergency doesn't allow the governor is to do what we've just been talking about, to destroy liberty. And there's no such thing as a dictator in the United States. And none of these self-proclaimed, self-appointed dictators like California and Michigan and New Jersey, and now we even have one of the worst ones in Washington State. So, yeah, we don't have such in America. And the number one goal, if I could remind all of these governors, I hope some of them listen, but they're probably too busy being tyrants to listen to a great show like yours. But if I could remind everybody that the number one goal in America is liberty. That's what all three branches of government are supposed to be trying to achieve. Individual liberty, and that we as government protect the God-given rights as guaranteed within our Constitution. And even if the Constitution didn't guarantee my natural rights, my natural innate rights, I still have an obligation as a governor or as a sheriff to uphold and defend the rights we were born with, whether they're mentioned in the Constitution or not. In fact, the Ninth Amendment covers that issue. Just because it's not mentioned doesn't mean I don't have it. And so it goes back to this. The Declaration of Independence states clearly in 9 or 10 words what the purpose of all government is. Quote, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. End quote. That almost sounds religious, and to me, I think it really is. To protect God-given rights, that's what we are assigned to do. That's what we promised to do. And now we have people saying, oh no, time out. You don't get liberty. You don't get the freedom of movement. You don't get to run your business. You don't get to run your own property. You don't get to run your own families. You don't get freedom of religion. Isn't that amazing? We're saying you don't get freedom of religion in America? Oh my God, what are we coming to? And so, no, you got to get back to the basics. Governors, you got to keep your word, keep your oath, and violation of your oath of office should be qualified reasons for leaving. If you don't keep your oath, you've committed perjury, which means you are officially a liar. Go home. You quarantine yourself.
Well, and we often see that whenever governments gain more power and control, especially under the guise of an emergency, it's rarely ever relinquished after the emergency is no longer there. Now, Sheriff Mack, we've seen demonstrations across the country, thousands of protesters protesting these lockdowns. While I think that many of us can stand behind and even stand with the protesters and their message, the people are essentially asking the government for permission to live their lives. So what's your take on this?
Well, I don't view it as asking permission. I view it as they're trying to get the governors to lay off. But a lot of these people, they're protesting, but they're also committing acts of civil disobedience. Yay, Rosa Parks. In fact, I compare Shelley Luther in Dallas to Rosa Parks. She's a modern day Rosa Parks, totally. She's standing against stupid laws. She's standing against stupid government. She's standing against stupid customs and norms. And I always said, if these protesters, either today or back in Rosa Parks' time, had the sheriff standing next to them, and we actually have had a little bit of that in Virginia, but if we had the sheriffs and peace officers, instead of trying to inhibit or even arrest some of these protesters, the sheriffs and peace officers should be guaranteeing their safety and marching with them. And isn't it wonderful that we have dozens, if not hundreds of sheriffs now across America that have told governors and certain mayors, we will not enforce your ridiculous rules and orders because we will stand and enforce the Constitution. And what should any peace officer do? If an order from the governor or from government conflicts entirely with the Constitution and his oath of office? That's an easy answer. You must side with your oath and with the principles of liberty that we all promised to uphold and defend and obey in this country.
Now, Sheriff, I want to get your take on the state's contact tracing programs. We have seen health officials from the World Health Organization stating that they believe it's time to start entering people's homes and determine who they believe is at risk or infected and remove them from their homes. And not too long after that, we also seen a public health official in Ventura County, California, say the same thing through their contact tracing programs. Now, this was met with pushback from the public. So the public health official, walked back those statements, but there is no doubt that isolation and quarantine are the whole point of contact tracing and a major protocol in this program. And now many states are activating their National Guard to assist in their contact tracing programs. Now, to me, this is very concerning, and it's a step towards Nazi Germany, in my opinion. What is your position on these programs?
Well, as you can tell by what we've already been talking about, these tracing programs are beyond anything Hitler ever dreamed of implementing. And he did try to do tracing of people. He gave everybody a number, especially Jews, and they tried to trace them and keep track of them. Sometimes putting uniforms and numbers on them, tattooing numbers on their arms, or sometimes even on their foreheads. This is how out of control America's gotten. And that we are comparing what some of these public officials are doing to Adolf Hitler, isn't that just an absolute aberration? It's a national catastrophe that we are comparing what's going on today in America, the land of the free, to Adolf Hitler. And I'm sorry that we're doing it, and I don't like doing it. But the truth of the matter, historically, we're doing the same damn thing. And there's no getting around it. And for these people to get support from the media or from the sheeple of this country who follow along the way they are, oh, please take care of me, government. Who in the hell do you trust in government to take care of you? Your governor, Newsom? No, I'm telling you, Fauci? Oh my gosh, there's a mistake. In fact, I totally agree with Dr. Buttar and Dr. Shiva, who said that Fauci is not only a liar, but he should be arrested, that he's committed crimes against humanity. And that guy, if you only took Fauci's, all of his contradictions, where he's contradicted himself, you would have to say that guy does not know what he's doing, or he is a liar. And I can't believe that Trump has kept him on this long. I'm going to tell you, I really like Trump, but Fauci has been a Trump mistake and disaster.
And he's in Bill Gates' pocket, many would argue. Now, speaking of President Trump, I recently did a report covering how Trump's plan to mobilize the military to distribute the new COVID-19 vaccine when it becomes available. They are predicting later this year, possibly in November. Now, in that report, I never said that the vaccine would be mandatory, and the president did not say that. In fact, I included a clip of exactly what the president said. But you can see where now this is going. At this point, this is, again, very concerning to me, and even a step beyond having the National Guard enforce or participate in these contact tracing programs. The idea that we will have the military deployed across the country internally with truckloads of vaccines. We don't know how yet who will be administering them, but the president clearly stated he plans to mobilize them to distribute them across the country. Now, what is your take on the president's plans here to mobilize the military domestically?
Well, I think he was just talking out loud that it was something he was considering, because he's looking at the enormity of such a project to get those vaccines out there. It used to be when I was a kid that we would line up in school and take the little polio sugar cube. And so it wasn't an injection then, but I did get lined up, and I think I was in the 3rd grade, for the smallpox vaccination. And they sit there and prick your shoulder, and I still have the scar from it. And I'm worried that he would consider that. However, I don't think he's going to, and he's backed off several things he said recently, like telling like he was going to order the governors and he was in charge of the governors. He found out that that was not true, and that the states are independent. And my Supreme Court case actually completely contradicts what Trump said on that. So maybe somebody showed him my Supreme Court decision where the government has already ruled. It's that my Supreme Court decision also says that states are not subject to federal direction. And I wish that the states would wake up and realize that. But I also wish that the United States Congress would wake up and realize that. Everybody needs to read my decision, and it really is powerful. It's an amazing miracle. And like we said at the beginning, it's the only time that a sheriff has sued the federal government and taken the case all the way to the Supreme Court and won. So I hope Trump isn't going to do this. But I will tell you this. I honestly don't believe that they can make enough vaccines for that. But I guarantee you they cannot and will not have enough people in the National Guard to go to every home to hand out or distribute the coronavirus vaccines. There's not enough people there. And I think it would be logistically impossible. And I think Trump will also see that. If they were to ever force vaccinations, I will stand against that. I will take drastic action to stop that. And again, like I said earlier, my choice about my health is exactly that. It's mine. To control my life and my body like that, are you kidding? That is not government's role. That is not them protecting and serving. That is them becoming, again, a dictator. And it's really sad that we have trained cops to already do that, because cops in this country, in some states, not all, actually will force, hogtie, handcuff, and control a person to extract their blood for court on a DUI. And that is something I have assailed for the last 15 years as soon as I heard about it going on, because I never did that. Our department never did that. Our sheriff's office never did that. The rule is if somebody refuses a alcohol-related test, field sobriety test, any kind of test where you got to blow in the machine or pee in a cup or extract your blood, those are my choice. I can refuse, and then the refusal is an automatic 1-year suspension of your license. You don't get to do that. You don't get to force people. Jefferson said, you cannot force the American people. That is not our form of government. And so now, what form of government are they trying to promote in America today? This is a democratic dictatorship where anything in this democracy is now forced upon us. And by the way, we're not a democracy, so why don't you learn that first? And I'd really like to tell that to all the governors and the college students in this country. We are not a democracy. We're a republic. And that republic is centered around a rule book. And the rule book is called the U.S. Constitution.
Now, Sheriff Mack, what happens if and when this second wave comes that we keep hearing about and the governors try to reissue another lockdown order, assuming that these lockdown orders that we're under right now will be lifted?
Well, I think all of us need to take this, and if they want to put something on my forehead, I will put it. Never again! Exclamation point. Never again. And I will say this. I believe it's happened. I believe it's coming. My wife and I were talking about this last night. I believe the second round is going to be a lot worse, and I think it's coming. And that's why we're trying to wake up every sheriff in this country. Folks, you need to get involved in this. You cannot sit by and watch this go. This isn't a parade. Okay, don't stand there and watch the parade go by. By the time it ends, your liberty might end with it. You've got to get involved. Get a hold of your sheriff. Get a hold of your chief of police. Get a hold of your favorite cop. And make sure that they're starting to realize that these forced vaccinations are around the corner. And a forced shutdown and quarantine the second time around is coming. We we cannot let that happen. For God's sake, open up the churches, defend people's rights to live their life and have liberty once again in America. Please keep your oath of office. Protect the people's freedom. It is not your prerogative to force somebody into some type of quarantine, lockdown, or social distancing. That's lunacy. Can't we see when we've gone too far? Aren't we smart enough and sensitive enough to know when we've gone too far? This has gone too far. And I thank God for the good sheriffs that have stood and defended people's rights and stood against these dictators. But it's not enough. And the American people have got to wake up and help their sheriffs and local officials wake up with that.
Well said. Sheriff Richard Mack, the founder of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officer Association, CSPOA.org is where you can find it. I'm going to leave links to everything below. Thank you so much for your time here today, Sheriff. And this is an extremely important message, and this is critical times. This is the most important time of our lives right now. What we face, what we're up against, our positions that we're in, and I don't think that the final chapter has yet been written. I don't think that it's set in stone. I think that we have the ability to change course. I think that if we do nothing at this point, then we're going to continue to barrel down the road of tyranny. But we still have the option. We're at a fork in the road, and we can still choose liberty. And it's all of us. As you said, people within the communities, law enforcement, there's going to have to make this decision as well to uphold the Constitution and their oaths. And so, Sheriff Richard Mack, thank you. Yes.
I would like to just clarify one thing. When people go to CSPOA.org, every single one of them, all of you can join. You can all become a member. This isn't just for cops or former cops or sheriffs. It's for the people. Become a member, get involved in what we're doing, join us in the holy cause of liberty.
Sheriff Richard Mack, it's been years since we've spoken, had you on my show, and I've known you for years now, and I definitely appreciate you having the time and making the time to come on my show, and you're always welcome. Anytime you need anything whatsoever, please do not ever hesitate. And again, everyone should absolutely go to CSPOA.org and go on there, check out the site, read the case, Sheriff Mack's Supreme Court case, where they defeated Bill Clinton's, basically it was an anti-gun bill. And you have been inducted into the NRA Hall of Fame because of your staunch commitment and standing for the Second Amendment and the Constitution. So thank you for all your service, Sheriff Richard Mack.
Thanks for having me, Spiro. See you soon.